Dean Thomas came out and he was talking about, and Dean Thomas, for my money, is as good of an expert in martial arts as you're going to find. He can coach, he could do it himself, he can judge the guy. He's great. Dean Thomas is a terrific mind, and he brought up a very interesting point, which had to do with win and show. And he's not the first to bring it up, but he might go back as far as anybody. He even referenced, you can check my MySpace page, just meaning that he's been saying this for a long time and isn't a new idea. And that's true. Heard him say it before. When I talk about the win and the show, the way fighters are paid generally, 95% or more, is here's what you get to show up and do the match. That will constitute the weigh-in. That will constitute walking out on fight night. But here's what you get if you win. And equally broad of a stroke is it's usually the same thing. If you're getting 25, you're getting another 25. 100, another 100. You guys understand. What Coach Dean Thomas is suggesting is that the win bonus is making guys more boring because they're just trying to win. And he believes that if it was a flat fee, somewhere in the middle of those two numbers, and then a bonus, more of a generic bonus, like the same amount for everybody as long as you get a finish, that you would have more exciting fights. Now, that's a really interesting point. He went on to, I don't know if I agree with it, but it's an interesting point. And the part where I don't know if I agree is the psychology of each fight. Like, for example, I never felt it. I never once felt it or thought I'm going to take more risks or less risks for the win bonus. My strategy, and I personalized, but it was the exact same the whole way through. I'm going to go as hard as I can. It was going to be chaos, going to be some hope involved. There's going to be some hard work involved. Never thought about the dollar sign. Dean Thomas then was talking about the 10-8 round. And currently the 10-8 round is used for when a fight is eligible to be stopped, but it wasn't. It could have been, but it wasn't. So the judges can come in and give a reward, even though the fight is going to see another round. Dean's talking about what if it wasn't? What if that's not what a 10-8 meant? What if a 10-8 meant that you controlled the guy, that you clearly had more offense than this guy? What if we used a 10-7 for when a round is eligible for stoppage? Again, I don't share an opinion, but I did find that to be a very interesting point from a mind that I greatly respect, his. And there is a piece of me that has sat back and wondered how this sport has never been revisited. The sport of boxing was revisited many times. The sport of boxing, you could have 100 rounds in boxing. You guys aware of that? But every time there was a knockdown, that was a round. It wasn't done by time. So you come out, you hit a guy, the gloves were a lot smaller back then, the talent was a lot less, there was a lot more people falling down. Boom, that ended the round. There was a break, you come back, it was automatically round number 2. Did you guys know that that was one of the things in boxing? Then they started to put a round system in, and even within my lifetime, there was 15 rounds. I've seen Sugar Ray Leonard, just by example, go 15 rounds. Now, that is way too many. The human body is not made for that. Not only are the athletes not made for that, there's nobody that wants to see it. It's terrible. So boxing stepped in and tried to fix itself and dropped it down to 12 rounds. Now, boxing, I would encourage, is going the right way, but they need to do it a couple more times. They need to get down to this 8-round business that we're seeing the Mike Tysons and the Roy Juniors and the Oscar De La Hoyas and the Pauls doing. 8 rounds, it's just lot better. Lot better action, a lot more activity. This is one guy's opinion. I'm just sharing that it should be revisited. I'm also sharing, moreover, that the history of combat has been revisited, except MMA. MMA is one of those things where at some point somebody said 5 rounds for a title fight. Somebody said 15 minutes for a non-title fight, and that's just what it was. Don't think you have to correct me to the early days of 1993 when it was one unlimited round, and the only reason I'm saying don't try to correct me is there was no commissions involved then. So that wasn't actually a set rule. And even when that was advertised to us all, it was not true. There was a pay-per-view window. That thing was going to go off the air, and that fight was going to get stopped at some point. That was nothing more than marketing. So I'm not going to count that. I'm going to exclude it and stick by what I maintain, that MMA has just not been revisited. And it would seem as though to be in line with other sports at some point. Because what are the chances? Just on a logical standpoint, what are the chances that on the first day of picking how many rounds there should be and how long those rounds should consist of, that we got it right. what would the absolute chance be that we got it right on day number one, particularly knowing what we know now about the advancements of talent? And that's indisputable. I can't imagine you would dispute it. If I must prove my premise, okay, great. There used to be tournaments. You fought 3 guys in one night. They don't do that anymore. They don't even fight 2 guys in one night. Why? Because the guys can't go on. The guys are so good now. There's not these squash matches. There's not these dominant matches. It's just too much, and people wouldn't show up. They wouldn't show up for the semifinals or for the finals, which they even quit doing back in the day when the guys were terrible and still learning. It would seem as though what Dean Thomas is suggesting makes a level of sense. And I don't like anything that supports the idea of complicating the judging more or putting any more onus on the judges. The judges are having an extremely hard time now with the very limited structure that they're put under of getting it right and moreover being consistent. If they got it wrong all the time, we're not having a conversation. That would just be the way it is. Consistency is so important. We don't see a lot of that. So putting more of an onus on a judge or having another level of sophistication is something that I think all of us would agree, no, we need to not do that. I have always liked, and I'm not bullish on this. Like, this isn't the hill that I want to die on. But I have always liked the way Pride did it. Pride, to remind you guys, had 3 rounds. The first round was 10 minutes. The next 2 rounds were 5. As weird and goofy as it is, I don't love the time structure. I never understood it. I'm just sharing with you that they did have a breakup and they did have 3 rounds, but it was to be judged as one long fight. The judges were instructed to not look at rounds, no 10-9 must system, pretend there is no break, pretend it's one continuous 20 minutes. Who dominated the other more? And you could lose 17 minutes of a Pride fight. But if you whipped that guy's ass for 3, they would raise your hand. It was just a different scoring system that I think many people agree to. I remember a night that BJ Penn clearly lost to George St. Pierre, but BJ, in the one round that he won, did a lot of damage. He busted George's face up. He won that first round dominantly. He barely lost the next 2. And BJ had a real problem with that. He's going, guys, how can you say he won? Look at his face and look at mine. Now, that's more of a playground rule. I was surprised to see the great BJ Penn even go in that direction. But to share with you, there was a lot of people that agreed with him. A lot of people are looking at it going, yeah, man, you beat this guy's ass. So what that he controlled you for more? Well, it's not to be revisited. Those were very clearly the rules, and the rules were very clearly followed. I just suggest for you that if it would have been done under the Pride rules, which is forget about the rounds, forget about the strategy, forget about all this gamesmanship. This is just one long fight, whether you get a water break and pat it down with a towel in between or not. For me, that made a level of sense. I got it. I would like to know what you guys think.